This is the Unlock Your Inner Creator series, and I'm your host, Noilyn Mendoza. My intention with this series is to spark conversations with passionate changemakers and creatives that bravely dared to dream of new ways and took massive action. Despite the chaos that's happening around us, a radical and liberated future, a new earth can be realized and is possible if we choose to take brave steps. So I invite you to explore with me what that could look like. Welcome, everybody. This is the second interview for the Unlock Your Inner Creator series. I'm Noilyn Mendoza. And for today's interview, we are fresh off the heels of Easter. And so when I think of Easter, I think of a specific energy around transition, resurrection, rebirth. What happens when our old self dies and we are born anew? I am so thrilled to have Kevin Lian here, a dear colleague and friend, as our second interviewee. Kevin and I first met in 2014. We were part of this nonprofit leadership program for Asian American folks who were working in various capacities in Asian American organizations across the country. And I always like to joke that if you saw us in 2014, we were all about business casual and suits. And now if you see us, you know, we went from that and now we're flip-flops, t-shirts, long flowy hair, and crystals. So there's a lot of reinvention that has happened in the last few years. Let me introduce Kevin a little bit more. So Kevin is a former nonprofit executive that has served in community advancement for nearly a decade. Through this work, he has cultivated relationships and major gift culture in cities and in rural mountain communities of California. So he has a little bit of everything. Kevin has now pivoted to a more creative and a direct way of stewardship, elemental herbalism. Kevin and his partner, Angela, recently co-founded a small apothecary and nursery business called APOTHERIE, centered around merging Chinese medicine theory and Western folk herbalism. What began as a side gig has turned into an avenue of accessibility to plant-based wellness for people across the country. Kevin currently resides in the foothills of the San Gabriel Mountains. So welcome, Kevin. I am so excited that you're here.
Thank you, Noilyn. That was a beautiful intro that you had earlier. That was just really like spot on for everything that's going on right now.
Wonderful. So when I think about you and your work, especially your work recently, I came across this quote, and it's by a woman named Mary Davis, and it reads, "A walk in nature walks the soul back home." So I'm just curious, how is that landing with you?
So like that really resonates with me. You know, I love the outdoors, and like being outdoors and nature is, I think, really the inspiration for what I'm doing right now in my life. And I think that whenever I'm feeling too stressed out or too much in my head or just too flustered, there's too much going on, there's too much negativity, I just need to get outdoors, like just take my van out, go to the mountains, and then I feel better. But even like today, like I was working like all day and just kind of feeling kind of like not great, you know? And then I took a break and I went outside and I watered my plants for like 30 minutes. And I just felt so much better just being outside, feeling the wind, seeing like the plants and like being with the earth. So yeah, I think that like it, you know, we are nature, you know, we're made of the same things as nature's made of. So it's only like fitting that we feel like we're going home when we're outside.
That's so beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I am curious, Kevin, you know, I see you as a nature guy now, and I'm just, I wonder, you know, when did the love of the outdoors begin for you?
So like when I was a kid, my family took me camping a few times with some other families that were part of this Chinese school. And I remember just being out in the woods, you know, towering trees, living in a tent, campfire, coolers, like that just really did something for me. And then I really didn't camp or do much outdoors like until after college. And when I met Angela, back then we were just dating, I found out that she loved the outdoors too and camping. And so we did our first backpacking trip together. We went up to Mount Whitney, and that was like, that kind of like set the tone for us, because I see that was like 7 or 6 years ago, our first trip. And now ever since, like, we're always trying to get back into the outdoors whenever we can.
Yeah. And I wonder if you can elaborate on the Mount Whitney story, because when we were prepping for this, I remember you had mentioned it. Mount Whitney is not exactly easy.
Yeah.
For those who are familiar with hiking and, this area. So could you talk a little bit more about that story?
Yeah, for sure. So like we were training for Mount Whitney in terms of the hike, like the distance and the altitude. So we hiked a bunch of mountains like around here, but then we had never been backpacking before. But we Googled everything, got all the gear that we needed. And so our first backpacking trip was like Mount Whitney. And that's kind of set the tone for everything else in our life. Like whenever we want to do something, we just go big, and we just like jump in with 2 feet first. And I see like, that's kind of how like this business started too. Like, it was kind of a side gig. And then we were like, well, we should just do this full time. And then I started full time, and then Angela, a few months after, left her job and then jumped in full time too. So go big or go home is kind of our theme.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have entrepreneurial spirit, because I think this idea of let's just do it, let's risk it.
Yeah.
Business is risky. You're putting yourself out there in so many ways. You're being vulnerable. You believe in this product. And I just love how you tied in that analogy of this time of you all spending, together doing things that you love, but then like taking on this big task of hiking. Mount Whitney is incredible. So you started to go down that road. So I'm going to follow you down that trail. You started this business just last year in the height of the pandemic. And, when I think about my peers who also run their own business, a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners, we were really called to pivot the way that we do work. If you're a product-based business, or if you're used to, like me, like I did a lot of my work like in person. I did my healings in person, I did trainings in person. And then we had to think about, well, we can't see each other, so how are we going to do this? But for you actually transitioned to a completely, in many ways, different field, in a different career. So I am curious, what was the catalyst to make this leap, especially during a time where there's a lot of uncertainty?
Yeah. So I think the catalyst was like luck, or like the universe. And like what I mean was, because like when I first, we were in that program together in 2014, 2015, but then I hadn't really seen you up until like 2019 in December, when I saw you for that Reiki session. And I reached out to you for that. Well, actually, I didn't even know that you were a Reiki healer. It was like through like Angela, and someone told her, and then Angela found out that I knew you, and then I said, oh my God, like she's there. So like, and at that time, I was like, I had just about hit rock bottom in my career. Like I was working myself to death. I think I was dying slowly. Like I actually believe that I was like killing myself, and all this pressure, all this stress. And I felt this block. So I thought that, going to you for Reiki would kind of help that. And it did, because soon after that, like less than a month after I saw you, I just felt so much more like myself, and like like my true north was like realized again, you know? And so I knew I had to do things that I had been putting off and take action in a certain way at work. And like, long story short, you know, that pushed me out of my job. And then the pandemic, you know, full blown, like came around like about a month and a half later. And so there's a lot of uncertainty in the world, but also just within my own personal life. And then I was faced with like a question, like, do I want to keep going down that path that I was on and potentially end up the same that I was, like end up in the same place that I was, or do something completely different? Because this was like an opportunity I saw, you know? And like, I thought about what that new opportunity might look like. And I just knew that like, it probably had to do something with the outdoors, with nature, you know? Because it's always been a very healing thing for me, like being outdoors. But also I thought, if I can think of something and create like a job for myself or go work for someone that has to do with what I'm in alignment with, then that's a better life to live than trying to just do something that I think I should do and just keep going down that path. And then so then I started to take some classes in horticulture at Mount Sac. I got like really into plants and like the science behind plants. And then, you know, how we actually started our business around creating herbal remedies and nursery is like joining what Angela loves, who's my wife, for those who don't know, and like what I love. You know, she had a lot of knowledge around herbal remedies, and I had a lot of knowledge around plants, and we both wanted to like work outdoors and like with our hands. And so I think organically that kind of came together.
I love it. One thing that I received from how you were describing everything and how it unfolds is, I just think it's so interesting that in some ways you were moved to these different positions, right? So we hadn't connected in a very long time, and then through a matter of circumstances, we got reconnected. And then shortly after that, you know, things started to unravel at work. And for a lot of people, they can look at that as, well, what's going on? But the way that you saw it in many ways was like, I actually get to decide now. How do I want to step forward to show up, right? To do this work. I can either go back to what I know, because you're an amazing fundraiser, right? You're an amazing nonprofit executive. You can continue that, but there was part of you that felt misaligned, or you can something else that was making you feel whole and healed.
Yeah, so like I think like shortly after I saw you, I realized myself, like I admitted to myself that I was broken and that I needed to heal myself. And that was never a concept that I thought of like in my I'm 34 now, I was 33 back then. But like, I never really saw myself as like, I need to heal myself, you know, because I always thought like I can handle all the pressure, all the stress, and I was busy all the time, always working. But I think like you like helped me see that. And then I spent like 3 good months just like thinking about and like reflecting on how the heck did I get here, you know? And then I realized through a lot of like thinking that I wanted to climb the corporate ladder, and I wanted to become an executive, and I wanted to do all these things that I thought were cool. And I wanted like the money and the power and like the cool cars and the cool cell phones. And then I realized that once I kind of got to the top, you know, I didn't like the view from the top, and it like was not what I thought it would be like. There was just a lot of stressed out people, and a lot of just not great things. And so that was a big like light bulb for me. It was like, okay, I saw that I became who I thought I wanted to become, and now I don't like that anymore. And I can like I had this opportunity to pivot, to change because of like luck or circumstance, And so I thought, if the time is not now, like, when is it ever going to be ready for me to shift, you know? And so I started to shift slowly.
Yeah. You bring up a really good point. It's, you know, sometimes we have these goals and we work our way in and we get to these goals. And like you said, like it's beautiful nowadays, like I got to the top, and then you have this vantage point and you realize that maybe you've evolved and this is not exactly how you wanted it. And I think for some folks, because they've desired this goal for so long, they stay there. What did you believe in yourself at that point to get back to this wisdom that you innately have, I feel, to say, this is not for me. I need to move. What were you believing?
I was believing that I could change, and that it's okay to break away, that it's okay to look at my past and be like, you know, yes, I did invest a bunch of time and money and years into this profession, but it's okay if I leave, and it's not shameful, it's not embarrassing, you know, it's just a shift, you know. And that was like kind of new thinking and kind of new territory for me to go into, you know, like, because it was the unknown. It was just like, will I have a job? Will I make money? Like, you know, like my resume, you know, like, what am I, like, all these worries, you know, that I see now that were like, you know, things panned out for me. Like, things didn't end up so scary as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and you took that leap. So, pivot just a little bit. I'm curious, who are the people that have been the most influential to you, just throughout your life, or maybe in the last few months?
So first and foremost, my wife Angela has been very influential, because like, we're similar in a lot of ways, but she'll push me to think outside the box. And because she knows me so well, and she's comfortable doing so, she'll, you know, call me out when I'm being like not who I am, like not being my true self, you know. So at times she'll bring me back to reality, and then I can see, like, with like fresh eyes, like through her perspective, like, okay, you know, I'm too caught up in this, or this is not really me, so let's rethink it. So I'm very lucky to have Angela. And then there's been like a friend that I met in college. It was my senior year, like right before I was gonna leave college, go into the real world. He's from England, and so he just came from a different perspective. And so like my mind was just like, you know, opened up a little more. But one more person that I think of now is my college professor. His name is Chuck O'Connell. He taught sociology at UC Irvine. And my first class, my freshman year, was this class called Race and Ethnicity. And it just like completely opened up my world. And I think I've been exploring different facets of myself and the world, like since that class.
Yeah. It seems like all of these people brought up different aspects of you and called you to grow, right?
Yeah.
To think outside of what you know. I am curious, because you brought up, like, you know, race and ethnicity. A lot of the things that you're doing with the business, it's really elevating yours and Angela's culture. So talk to me a little bit about what the vision was around creating what was Well Rising, but now it's APOTHERIE.
So so I think, like, after we decided that we wanted to work with plants and herbs, and that we wanted to help people and serve people through those mediums, we thought about like our own life and how we've been a product of like two cultures. Like, both of our parents are from Taiwan. We were born both in Monterey Park. And so, like, you know, navigating life, being like having that Taiwanese ancestry, but being born an American, you know, it's always this like these two worlds, you know. And so we thought that if we're gonna create a business that is really coming from the heart, then it has to be all of us. And so Angela grew up using a lot of Chinese herbs and medicine. I did a little bit, not as much as she did. So she kind of brought all that knowledge to the forefront. And then now we're both enrolled in an online school around astrological herbalism and alchemical herbalism. And so we're learning a lot more about plants in very cool ways.
Okay, this is piquing my interest because I've never heard of astrological herbalism. How is it different than maybe what like usual layman knows about herbalism?
So I'm still a beginner and like still learning all these things, but to answer your question, I think the main difference is like simple herbalism can be like you learn what a plant can do for a specific effect. But in astrological herbalism, we learn like guiding principles that will help you understand better how to use herbs to help people. Because like one herb can be very warming for someone, but you take someone else who has a different body type and they could have the opposite effect. And so like astrological herbalism is a theory that everything is the same from like the plants to ourselves. Like everything is a reflection of nature pretty much. So humans are part of nature. And so we can all be categorized into the 5 elements and, you know, different, and like how different signs affect plants and ourselves. And you take all that together to figure out how to best serve the person.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating. I think I need to look at that up a little bit more. But you know, when you're talking about it, I would just think of the word like, you know, regenerative. You know, how we're all kind of connected to each other and all of these elements. And yeah, that's so beautiful. What's your favorite plant ally right now, or plant allies?
Yeah, so right now I'm really digging rose and lavender. Rose can help us like open up. So it's really good in terms of like when you need like more love, or if you've gone through a hard, difficult time. Lavender is very soothing and calming. So yeah, lately I think maybe with just like how busy I've been, but also all the stuff going on in the world around race and just violence, I think that like I just think of like, okay, let's go make some lavender tea or some rose tea. And I think because now it's springtime, so flowers are starting to bloom. So I think I'm feeling that transition into more bright and flowery things. Yeah.
Well, you know what I did notice? You pick 2 plant allies that often exceed softness and gentleness. So I did think that was interesting. And I remember you had posted something on your Instagram recently, which I had a little chuckle about, but I completely agree. It's like we need more men who love plants and be in the garden. I know that like that's one of the things that you're trying to espouse. And so I just thought it was interesting. It's like rose and lavender, there's something so soft, like I said, about it, which I think is great. But you know, to my point around, you know, men and plants, what is your take on them? What do you want to say?
I think I think plants are for everyone. I mean, plants like are so nice to have at home. To care for a plant, it's so rewarding. Like it's almost like raising a kid. I mean, we don't have any kids, but like with my plants, I view them as my kids, and I just feel so much love when I take care of them, and like seeing them grow, like it just gives love back to me. And yeah, I think just in general, like there's, you know, in our Western culture in America, there's this huge thing about being macho, and like if you're a guy, you gotta like love like, you know, big trucks and big guns and all that stuff, you know. But it's like I really love plants, and I would love to see like more people, like more guys in particular, like gardening and stuff, and kind of take away that like that stigma that like gardening is for women. You know, yeah, I don't know. I just think it's for everyone, that there's so much that we can all benefit from if we just like take away those blocks and just think differently.
Yeah, yeah. And I would even say, because I'm in a home gardening class right now,
Oh,
and
cool.
I literally laughed when when I logged in to Zoom and it was an online class. I'm 43, and so I was literally the youngest person in that class. And it's just one of those
Oh,
things where I
yeah.
guess I just assume I was like, there's other people that are going to be, you know, of all ages that are in this class. And so I think it's like, you know, I think we tend to think of like plants and plant lovers to be a certain type of person, a certain age, right? Whether they're male or female. But you know, I do think that there's a lot of wisdom when we can get back to being in nature and to be part of nature. So what would you say have been some key lessons or some key insights that you've gotten just the more time that you spend outdoors?
I think like being outdoors has taught me that um, my busy mind and me always wanting to do something is
Mm-hmm.
not normal.
Mm.
Yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
when I'm out camping and backpacking for 3, 4, 5 days, you know, it's usually like the second day where I just feel inner peace. And
Mm.
then by the end of the trip, I remember that this is how like what I like this is how normal feels like, you know, like
Mm.
where you don't feel this underlying anxiety of something
Mm.
that I have to do or that wasn't done. It's just
Yeah.
like I'm at peace, you know, and like now like currently I haven't been out backpacking in a few months or like hiking in a long time because I hurt my foot, and so I've been like in the house a lot, and I just feel like this constant like I've got to do stuff, I've got to be busy, and I catch myself like reverting back to who like I don't want to be. It's just like this constant, you know. I think it has to do with being in the city and just kind of like there's just, you know, there's all this sound around this. There's always like there's sirens. I hear sirens all the time, you know. But you know, being out in nature, like when you're, you know, 10, 20, 30 miles away from any city, you can really start to feel at peace. And that
Mm.
is a feeling that once you felt it, um,
Yeah.
it doesn't leave you. You can always tap back into it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's incredible power when you're in stillness. I always feel like it's that quiet time. It's the stillness where you can gain a lot of clarity. It's hard to be creative when there's a lot of literal noise
Yeah.
around you. And you know, you can get so easily distracted and swayed, but then when you're outdoors and it's very still, it's like you're tapping into something that's completely different. It's like you're tapping into you know, whether you call it your higher self, your higher soul, but it's you getting reconnected with yourself and who
Yeah.
you really are in many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my next question is, you know, for those who are curious about, you know, possibly starting their own business or taking a leap, right, to like something really major that they've been wanting to do, what advice would you give them? You know, what's one thing that you wish you would have known before you know, started your business?
Uh, I think I think it might be that it's it's simple, but it's not going to be easy to make
Mm.
that leap and that shift. Because like when I think back of like last year around like June is when we started to form our pieces of this business, and then in
Mm-hmm.
September we launched. I remember we had a lot of anxiety around like, are we going to be able to pay the bills? Will this job work out? Will people like what we're creating? And I see that like, yeah, like on the realistic side, you have to have some sort of income, you know?
Yeah.
And so once you figure that out, like if you're at a job, I would say like just start it on the side. But
Mm-hmm.
the most important thing I think is just to start, because like from my own experience, fear has stopped me a lot from doing something or creating something.
Yeah.
And it's really like fear of what others might think of me. And you know, today I still sometimes I still have my issues with that, but I see that like there's really nothing to be afraid of. And if you are able to, if you can find your way to just start it and just keep going, then like I think like maybe like you're like halfway there already. Like it's simple, but it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, yeah. You remind me of this thing that I learned recently. It's called the terror barrier. And analogy is like there's a brick wall that you're thinking like, here's the outcome that you want, and you're on the side, there's a brick wall. And you're doing all these things that kind of self-sabotage like you to go through this wall, but it's actually not a brick wall. It's a thin piece of tissue paper.
Yeah.
But we get so caught up in our mind around this fear, whether it's like fear of judgment or like, what if this doesn't work out, that we prevent ourselves from even trying. And so like, you know, to your point, it's just like, you know, putting yourself out there and then getting past the fear and doing it. And of course you can course correct along the way and you learn, but it's to take that first brave step by pursuing your dream.
And then also I would say like it doesn't have to be perfect to put it out there, because like I was sort of a perfectionist and like in my past career, you know, always being like kind of in the public's eye, like perception was just so important, you know. But I think like when you're an entrepreneur and you're creating something that's completely new, you just have to be okay with just putting it out there. And like I heard this saying once, it's like if you're not embarrassed by your first version of it, then you've like published too late, you know.
That was a good one.
And so like that, so like when we were creating our products and our labels and the website, you know, we would spend so much time on trying to perfect it based on what we thought people would like. But at a certain point I remember like we just got to get it out there, and then once it's out there we can change it after that.
Yeah. And it's that thing that you just said, like literally it's like you can still change it. Like nothing is permanent, it's not stagnant. It's okay to change, it's okay to evolve. And I think sometimes you get caught up, like what you're saying, it's like this perfectionism mode, right? Where it has to be like perfect and it has to, you know, look a certain way or it's not going to be acceptable. So how did you get past that? Because you were saying like you used to spend lots of hours, and now let's just put it out there. Let's put our products out there so that people can enjoy it, and then we can get feedback. What did you all do?
I think for me it was like I was working on our business and like getting things going, but we hadn't started, like we hadn't opened our doors yet, so to speak, you know. And I was like, well, like we have to open our doors at some point because we need money to come in. And so it was just that like urgent pressure of like, you know what, it's gonna be fine, let's just get it out there. So I think it was kind of organic. Like I think we all reached that point at a certain time, but in my experience, if you can reach it sooner than later, just do that. Like if you can get over your fears sooner than later, then you'll be ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I love that. Just get over your fear, just do it. We had also talked in a previous conversation, and I would love to elevate it for this one, around this idea of not being so serious when you're creating and just playing. So tell us a little bit more about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I think that we have a lot of fun in creating our things, and we're creating different products and like testing new things, and what I've realized in the last like 6-7 months is that work can definitely be a lot of fun, but it's not always a lot of fun, and that could be for different reasons. But I think if like to be really successful, I think you first and foremost have to have fun at what you're doing. It's got to be play-like, and for us, like whenever we're getting too serious, we will call each other out and be like, hey, like, you know, like this isn't fun anymore, you know? And so we just kind of stop and we're like, yeah, this isn't fun. Like, why did we leave good paying jobs and security to become stressed out again, you know? So it's like changing how we think. And I think like it's conditioning. Like we've been conditioned to like need to be serious, you know, and like maybe conditioned to like it's got to be tough, or we've got to like assert, or like it's got to be stressful, you know, because like I think of like when you think about your typical, you know, corporate boardroom, like it's always very serious, you know, it's portrayed like that in the movies and stuff. And I think it's like I think in my opinion that it's a very small percentage of like companies, like big companies or small companies that like have a lot of fun and like are always laughing. And so I think like I grew up just thinking that like work has got to be tough and hard and like very stressful, right? But what I've learned ever since we opened our business is that it doesn't have to be that way, but we still get the same outcome. Like we still make money, we still grow, we still do the things that we want to do, but like we had a lot of fun doing it.
I receive that. That is like such great, you know, like you said, we could either do it and be disgruntled and like worry and get this outcome, same outcome, or we can be happy and we can play and we can come from it from a place of wonder, and excitement, and still get the same outcome. Right. And so a lot of it is like, it's like I said, it's reprogram, it's so much reframing. But I also feel like the more and more that you do it, you're literally rewiring your subconscious thinking. Like, it's really fun to run this business, to help people, and also to make money and to support myself. It doesn't have to be so like draining. That's great advice.
And like I used to think that like I equated hard work with like working a lot of hours, you know, like I used to work on my vacations and I used to work when I got home, you know, and I just thought, well, it's like, it's good, you know, like I'm working. And so I realized that I didn't know how to relax, you know, and that's crazy. And so you know, since starting our business, like I've had to change that, like actively push against it, like be like, okay, it's like 3 p.m. today. I've like worked a full day. There's a whole bunch of things to do, but I'll just do it tomorrow. And I'm gonna go enjoy life because what is life if we can't enjoy it? So I think there's a lot of like corporate conditioning in this.
You're working through it, so I love it. So what would you say have been the best resources that have helped you along the way as you all grow this business?
I think it's like been like people, like just friends, colleagues, and like Google, like the internet. The internet has just so much knowledge and stuff out there. But I think also like just leveraging on people that I know, like it's always been hard for me to ask for help, you know?
I was gonna say, I was like, you're gonna go there. Asking for help, yes.
And like, you know, and so like, but it's like talking to all of my friends or people that I've met along the way for advice or asking them something and like not fearing what they might respond with, you know? I think for me, like when I stopped like having all that fear, then I'm just more in flow, you know? And the more I do it, the easier it becomes. And so I think that like I'm like willing to say that we all have like a lot of resources around us in terms of people with knowledge, but we might be scared to reach out for XYZ reasons. And that fear is very real, but I'm telling everyone to get over that fear, that it's really just in your head.
And you know, that is something that I had to work through, you know, as well over the last few years, is this idea of asking for help. Like you don't need to do everything on your own. And one thing that I've noticed, and I'm curious if you saw this too, it's like there's people actually want to help you. It's not like what you're thinking in your mind, like it's going to be a burden if I ask for this, I'm taking up too much of their time, whatever. But I think innately as humans, we have this desire to want to help other people when they're in times of need. And so I just think it's awesome that you bring that up as like a piece of wisdom that you learned in starting your business. It's like tap into your resources, ask for help.
Yeah.
In a way, like kind of being vulnerable, right? Like,
yeah,
this is actually what I have questions about, and I don't know how to do this. Can you help me, or can you refer me to somebody that might know?
Yeah. I think you're right that a lot of people like really do want to help other people, and sometimes I still have a hard time with that too. Like believing that people do want to help, that it actually makes them very excited. I think it's like somewhere in my life I learned that like to be successful is to do everything on my own. I think it's also part of our Western society and the things that we learn, like just be very independent, and that's good in some ways, but I think like to really like reach big success, I think we have to be like nature. Like if you think about nature, everything is interconnected, and they all rely on like trees rely on the bugs and the water and the fire and the rain, and everything's connected, but then as humans, we think like we're not, like we're just going to be separate individuals. I think, and I've learned that by like opening myself up and inviting more people to be a part of my life and this journey, like things happen, like abundance comes, and like success will happen down the road.
Yeah. And you made me think about, we're talking about, this is like a very Western thing to think about being independent. In some ways, it's also like when we think about that we're interconnected to each other, it's this idea around community and collectivism, right? And however you describe it, right, those are really very, very indigenous ways of looking at things, right? It's in many of our cultures, right, we don't come from individualistic cultures, we come from collective cultures, where we raise our kids together, we help each other, and so I just think it was interesting that you brought that back to nature, of that's one way that you also connected it.
Wow. Yeah, and I think that's why like I just feel so much more relaxed, like being outside, being in nature, and like whenever I'm really stressed out, I just go outside or like go for a walk. Like a 30-minute walk makes me feel completely different. And I think like there's a physical aspect of it, but also just being outside, like not being in a room, not being in a place that's not very natural, so I think it's super important for everyone to like spend more time outside.
Let's shift a little bit, because you all recently changed your name to APOTHERIE, and it used to be called Wild Rising. Tell me what the impetus to change the name was.
So it was twofold. Like on the one hand, we felt like with the name Wild Rising, there's a very like almost like activist or like a rebel feel to it, like going against the grain, like rising all the time. And that kind of felt just for us a little not fully who we thought like our business would become. But also because like after like 7 months of the business, we saw that like we created all these things. We had a lot of fun creating different products and services. But we kind of strayed from like what we wanted to do, which was like use plants to help people. And so APOTHERIE is a play on the word apothecary and nursery. So like apothecary, like an older word of like a pharmacy, and then nursery, selling the actual live plants. And it wasn't easy to make that shift. Like we were thinking like, I mean, I was thinking like it was going to be such a big headache. Like all these things would have to be changed.
Yeah.
Turns out like it's not that bad, you know? And I think it goes back to like having that fear of like, well, everyone knows us as this. If we change, like we're going to be out of a business, you know, which is not true for us. But also like just like talking to each other and like, you know, figuring out, you know, what kind of life do we want to live? What do we want our business to look like? That was kind of, yeah, that's like, that was our reason to change.
Yeah, awesome. Um, so you're launching a bunch of new products coming up with, especially with this name change. So talk to me a little bit about what you all offer through your business.
Yeah, so we offer a variety of herbal remedies using traditional Chinese medicine theory and Western folk herbalism theory to come up with these remedies. And we have everything from like loose leaf teas to oils to tinctures. And now we're starting to create like culinary oils, because we've seen that's been very popular, where we infuse oils with different plants. We found that it's like being able to ingest the herbs like through an oil-based carrier. It's just like a better way for our bodies to like ingest the medicine. And also we're working on like some body scrubs, like using salt, like playing around with salt and oils to like heal different like skin things. So yeah, we're kind of always like thinking about different things.
Yeah. So that's a whole bunch of different types of products. Like it really runs the gamut from, like you said, teas to even things that you put on your body, things that you cook with. I am curious though, how do you all come up with these ideas? Is it something that like you hear from the customers, or are they things that that you've tried yourselves?
Yeah, it's like half. Like our customers give us a lot of feedback about what they like and also what they wish we had. So we think about it, see if we could make it, and then we'll test it ourselves. But also like I think we spend a lot of time coming up with these ideas by like being still, like you said earlier, like just sitting and like meditating and like letting like all the busy thoughts like subside, so that we can see clearly like what we want. And like usually once we get to that state, the answer is very obvious to us of how we should move forward. Yeah.
So how can our listeners connect with you all?
Yeah, so we're on Instagram at My Apotherie. That's spelled MYAPOTHERIE. And you can visit our website at apotherie.com. And you can see all the different products that we're offering. And we're starting to offer plants now too, because we realize that, you know, like offering the ready-made herbal remedies is great for someone who's very busy, but personally working with the plants ourselves has transformed us and healed us like in a different way that we think is really beneficial. So we want to bring those medicinal plants out to the people as well.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So my last question for you, Kevin, what does being a creator mean to you?
I've been thinking about this a lot lately, you know, like what, but I think it means like taking action. Like being a creator is like you're literally creating something, and to do that you have to take action. And I think that is like the main thing to do, is just take action, be the one that initiates, yeah, just lots of action, big action.
Big action, be the one that initiates. I love it. I love it. I love it. On that note, we're going to do our I am card pulls. And so when you think about creation, I am is one of the most incredible words and phrases that are out there. And I like to think about I am as I for intention is this commitment to carry out an action, as Kevin said. affirmation, the declaration that it is already true and it's here and it's coming. And manifestation, it's the actualization of your intention and your affirmation. So I'm going to fan this out and I'm going to move my hand, Kevin, and then you just tell me when to stop.
Okay, stop.
Stop. Okay, good. All right, so closing thought for today. The card reads, I am alive. I honor my life by letting go, dancing, singing, and feeling the fullness of my joyful energy. I am my true self when I'm having fun. I am alive. I am alive. Awesome.
I am alive. Yeah, I love that.
Incredible. And it actually brings up a lot of the points that you said today. So let's have fun. Let's be full of joyful energy. And on that note, I wanted to thank everybody for tuning in. We have so many more of these wonderful interviews coming up. So I just want to take a moment to thank Kevin. Thank you for all the wisdom that you shared. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your radiance and your light and all of the wonderful work that you're doing with our plant allies and spreading that love. And the reminder that let's get back to nature and learn all that we can. And then also to be good stewards, as you had said, let's be good stewards while we're still here on this earth, right?
Yeah.
So tune in, everybody. We'll see you soon. And until next time, have a great week.
Thanks, Noilyn.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation and you'd like to help support this interview series, make sure to tune in to the next episode and share it with others. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram at The Radiant You, you as in the letter U, and sign up for my newsletter by visiting www.theradiantu.com. Again, that's theradiantletteru.com. Thanks, everyone, and remember, dream big, dream bold, and take brave steps. I'll see you next time.